What is going on YouTube? Joe here with Culination Media and welcome back to another episode of CM Strats. Today we are jumping into RU, so we're just going one tier up from the Noctel episode last time around, and we're going to take a look at my Shiftry set, which was probably one of the most common recommendations that I read in the comments and on Twitter and all that jazz. So here we go. It's actually a pretty straightforward set, so there's really not that much explaining to do, but I'll try to go over some important points and some possible partners and things like that. Now, before we get started today, if you guys can, if you haven't done so already, and you would like to show some support to the channel and the series, all that good stuff, all you gotta do, click that thumbs up button right below this video. It does help out more than you probably know, or maybe you do know, and that's why you click the like button every time. I don't know. I do know that I appreciate your support on that. And I also always look forward to reading your comments, so feel free to write your thoughts down below. There are several of you that comment on every single video, and I want to thank you for that. Special shout out to you guys, because it's amazing reading your comments every day. Some of you leave some really long, really thoughtful comments. That's always a lot of fun. I do read all of them, so don't be shy. Don't think you're going to get ignored. It doesn't work that way. It's not how I do things. Now, there's enough talking about that, because we are here to look at this Shiftry set. It has moved up to RU, so I made sure that I put that on the graphic there, because he was PU for the longest time and just about never used in the never used tier, and now he's finally moved up to RU. And the main reason that he moved up is not even on my set, because it's honestly mostly because of the fog, and I don't even have that. Of course, that is an option, but we're not going to be talking about that. So, well, I guess I'll probably mention it. Anyway, first up here, the nature. This Shiftry is an offensive set, so we do go with the adamant nature. You could go with Jolly if you wanted to, just to get that extra boost in speed, especially because Shiftry is only base 80, which really isn't that fast for an offensive Pokemon, and he doesn't really have that much bulk behind him, so I could see wanting a little bit more speed. But we do have that Sucker Punch, which is going to be used as a priority move, because that's what it is. So that helps out the speed problem a little bit, and Shiftry honestly needs that extra power, so I do suggest using Adamant, but at the same time, Jolly can be used just as well. Now the EVs, very, very straightforward, no secrets there, just max attack, max speed. The 4 leftover, you can put in anything that you want, either defense stats or the HP. I just wrote in HP because why not? It really is not that important. Now as for the item of choice, I usually run Focus Sash, but there are quite a few items that work well on this Shiftry set. It really depends on what tier you're taking Shiftry into and what you want to be able to set up Swords Dances on. If you want a guaranteed setup, which is generally what I count on, because Shiftry gets me out of jams. That is usually what I use this Shiftry for. I save it until the end of the match, or I save it to when there's a point in the match where I really need to get out of a jam. My opponent has set up a little bit, or I'm just running into a problem, I get critted. You never know what's going to happen. You never know. You can get frozen, you can get an untimely fully parried, you can get confused and hit yourself, you can have attacks missed and you just get destroyed, and you need something to fall back on. Shiftry is usually that Pokemon for me, and that is why I choose the Focus Sash a majority of the time. You can opt to run a Life Orb, but Shiftry's not going to be sticking around too long. You're going to find that it's going to be very difficult to find blah blah blah. I can't speak English sometimes. You're going to find that sometimes it's difficult to find an opportunity to set up Swords Dance, especially when it's not guaranteed. Shiftry doesn't have a lot of bulk, and if you take a hit, you're going to go down to Life Orb usually pretty quickly. So that is something that takes some prediction. Usually you'd have to come in on something that Shiftry would force a switch with, if that makes any sense. So like coming in on a water type Pokemon, because Shiftry just destroys it with any grass type move, then your opponent would switch, you could set up a Swords Dance, that kind of thing. Similar situation goes for if you choose to carry a Lumberry, which I do sometimes, and what that does, it just basically allows you to set up on something different. And one of the main things that I love to set up on with Shiftry, especially on Battle Spot, is Rotom Wash, because they very, very rarely run any kind of speed investment, so you will outspeed most of the time. And if they're running speed investment, a lot of times it's not enough to outspeed Shiftry at max speed anyway. So you outspeed, you can go for that Swords Dance on the first turn. They're almost always going to try to Willow you. And that's the best case scenario, because one, Willow misses a lot, and you still have that Lumberry. And if it does hit, you have that to fall back on. And then you can fire off a Seed Bomb, which most of the time at +2, let's be real here, Shiftry is taking out that Rotom. So, yeah, pretty much. And if they don't want to do that, they're just going to have the Volt Switch out, and you get a free Swords Dance boost anyway, and your Lumberry is still intact, depending on what they want to go into. If it's like Sableye or something, you're still in good shape. So all of those are definite options for this set. I wanted to make sure I mentioned all of them, even though I only have Focus Sash listed here on the graphic. All very much so options. And actually, if you watched the Pokemon Showdown session, the first one that I did on this channel, oh, I guess not the first one, but recently I brought Showdown back on my channel as a staple. Shiftry was in that first session, and I think I was carrying a Lumberry on that, and it performed pretty darn well. That's why he was on the thumbnail, because he was a beast. Now, as for the ability, you've got a couple of choices. Chlorophyll works best for me. It's very situational. Most of the time, your ability is not going to be doing anything for you anyway. I think Early Bird is one, and since you're a grass type, that really doesn't do much for you this gen, because you're not going to be getting hit with Sleep Powder or Spore or anything of the sort. I mean, I guess there's the Stray Hypnosis, but let's be real here, or Yawn, I guess. But Shiftry's not going to be getting put to sleep very often at all. So, and the other ability is Pickpocket, which doesn't make a lot of sense to use, so Chlorophyll's there in case you happen to have Sun up for some reason. Either you set it up with someone else on your team, or I don't know, your opponent has a Sun team, you know, Shiftry can turn the tables on them. I don't really know, but that's just the ability thing. Now, let's take a look at the moves, because there are a lot of options here, and it's a little bit unfortunate if you're trying to build this for Wi-Fi and you don't breed in 5th gen like me, because there are quite a few moves that are 5th gen only as far as tutors go and that sort of thing. Sorry about that, but there are other options. Now, we've got Swords Dance. That's obviously the main, well, not the main move, but that's usually what the purpose of this Shiftry is for. It is fully physical, obviously, because it's got Swords Dance. Actually, Shiftry gets Nasty Plot too, and that's something I've been meaning to try, but I don't think Shiftry gets any priority on the special side. So that's why I haven't, that's why I lean more towards the physical side, because that Sucker Punch is so clutch, especially in higher tiers and against faster Pokemon and all that jazz. That brings us to the second slot, which is the Sucker Punch. Stab Sucker Punch. Anything that gets stabbed Sucker Punch and has a decent physical attacking stat is an amazing Pokemon in my book. So useful. It's base 80 power. Most priority moves, aside from Extreme Speed, which is an amazing move, but most priority moves have 40 base powers, and this is literally double of what most priority is, plus you're getting stab off of it. After a Swords Dance, it demolishes just about everything that doesn't resist it, and even things that resist it take a butt ton of damage from it. So you can always just weaken something for your, you know, another teammate to come in later on and finish things off, depending on where you are in the battle. So Sucker Punch, really, it's kind of a crutch for this set, because Shiftry's only got base 80 speed, and I run Adamant, so things like Assault Vest, Gallade, if they're running max speed, and Jolly, they're gonna outspeed you, or if they're running Adamant max speed, it's still a speed tie. So Sucker Punch is the way to go there. Now we also have our Grass type stab, which is going to be Seed Bomb. And interesting little fact, Shiftry is, I don't know if it's actually confirmed, but I think I saw it in a trailer or something, I forget where I saw it. But Shiftry is getting Leaf Blade for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so that is pretty darn cool. I don't know if that means we're going to be getting a move tutor, or if it's just going to be added as a, you know, extra egg move or something. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but it only adds an extra 10 base power, so I'm not that excited about it. It's really not that big of a difference, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it has a high crit chance too. Anyway, Seed Bomb is the way to go. It's got 80 base power, so it's basically the same thing as using Sucker Punch. It just doesn't have priority. and you're also getting stab off of it. So that's what you're going to use on things like Road-Type Wash and Water types, Ground types, that sort of thing. Then we also have Knockoff, which if your opponent still is carrying their item and it hasn't been knocked off or used yet, Knockoff is actually more powerful than Sucker Punch because you get that boost. So powerful. Like I said, after a Swords Dance, if you thought that Sucker Punch was going to kill a lot of things, Knockoff destroys everything. And if by some miracle it survives after a Swords Dance, you get rid of its item, and it's a good time. It is a good time. I mean, most Dark types and even non-Dark types, everyone's carrying Knockoff this gen, so I do recommend it. Now, something else you could throw on this set is the Defog if you really wanted to, just to give it some extra utility. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know that I like that so much. The reason that I don't have it is because Shiftry is not bulky enough, in my opinion, to come in and use it. Sure, he's fast, but that's just not how I run this set. It's supposed to be an offensive set, and Defog, you can't really find an area to put it in, or a move slot to put it in, I guess is what I should say. I guess I can get rid of Knockoff and have Sucker Punch be the sole Dark Stab, but that's just not how I like to run it. So yeah, that's pretty much the moveset. I think that's everything I wanted to go over. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I really am, but perhaps I'm not. So we can move on into, oh, I do know what I wanted to say. Leaf Storm is also something that I've seen that's very common on Shiftry, because Shiftry is apparently very good at being a mixed wall breaker type set, and Leaf Storm just destroys physical walls most of the time. So if you're gonna run that route, I probably wouldn't be packing the Seed Bomb. I also wouldn't be packing the Swords Dance. So you'd have to change the setup a bit. You'd have to change the nature too. But I just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility. But since this series is just, you know, what I run on my Pokemon, not exactly what the most viable thing is, it's just something I'm mentioning in passing. So let's move on. Now we can go over some partners and teammates and things that work well with Shiftry, and, you know, whatever the final points are that I want to make, because who knows? Who knows? So first things first, because this is an offensive set, and you're going to try to, especially after you get that Swords Dance set up, you're going to try to just come in and start killing things. That is what Shiftry is for. You just come in, set up a Swords Dance if you can, otherwise you just try to kill things and pick up as many KOs as possible. Shiftry is amazing for that, and because of this reason, things that have Sturdy and Focus Sash can be a real problem because Shiftry is so frail, and especially if you've already been taken down to Sash, or your opponent has priority and you have to rely on Sucker Punch and such, you need to be able to pick up those KOs, because Sturdy or Sash or whatever, that can really ruin Shiftry's chance at doing anything, maybe even picking up a sweep. So for that reason, I do suggest when you're team building that you add some type of hazards on your team, maybe even multiple types. Any Pokemon that can set up Stealth Rocks, or that can set up spikes or toxic spikes or whatever it may be, those are generally something that Shiftry appreciates. So they make good teammates for Shiftry here. Some examples of that could be Regirock for the Stealth Rocks. You could have Quillfish, because Quillfish sets up spikes and toxic spikes. I believe they are both in NU. You can bring them to RU. Unfortunately, Shiftry doesn't go to NU anymore, but you know what I'm saying. And who knows? I mean, maybe you're using Shiftry in higher tiers, in which case you have different options as far as hazard-ish Pokemon to bring. Now, Pokemon that also can get rid of hazards are fantastic, because, especially if you're carrying the Focus Sash, you don't want to come in on hazards when your Focus Sash is intact, because it's going to be broken, and then it's basically like you have no item, and it's a waste. You don't want that. So Pokemon like Kabutops. Kabutops is a fantastic partner for Shiftry, and actually something I should have mentioned a minute ago when I was talking about Pokemon that can set up hazards is Golurk, because Shiftry does have a big weakness to fighting type moves. Mach Punch and Close Combat in particular are things that Shiftry does not like to take. Even Drain Punch. Golurk can switch in on those pretty darn easily because of its ghost typing, and then if you're forcing a switch especially, which a lot of times you do, you can just set up those rocks, and Shiftry likes that a lot. And I think I mentioned Kabutops is a good rapid spinner, but anyway, Kabutops is a good partner because it doesn't take any damage whatsoever from fire type attacks, so you're generally good to switch in there, and you can get your rapid spin off or scare fire types out with your water rock typing and all that jazz. And last but not least, since you are running the chlorophyll ability, anything that can set up Sunny Day really does help out Shiftry if you want to go that route. Of course, you don't have to. A lot of times, the Shiftry just, not a lot of times, it does. The Shiftry does just work fine on its own. It doesn't need that much support, not nearly as much as a lot of other Pokemon do. But if you're bringing it to OU, Charizard Y is a good option. Ninetales with Drought is a good option if you're using it in the lower tiers. Even Heat Rock, Prankster, Volbeat, or Leopard with the Sunny Day and Heat Rock and all that stuff. I think I said Heat Rock like 3 times. But they're good partners also because that really mitigates Shiftry's only, well, not only problem, but one of its biggest problems, and it's that slow base 80 speed stats for a sweeper. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover for Shiftry here. I thought this was going to be a short video, but it turns out that I actually had a lot to say. So yeah, my notes as far as, because I'm recording a bunch of these in a row, so I had the Noctowl video, and that went up a couple of days ago. Then we have the Shiftry one here, and I've got a few others that I don't want to give away in this video. This was the shortest as far as the notes that I have and topics I wanted to talk about, and apparently I'm just going to talk for a long time. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let's see, what else do I have to say? Nothing really. So if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to either hit me up on Twitter, and my link is in the description below, as I always mention, or you could just leave a comment, and, you know, whatever questions or concerns you may have. You can also suggest any Pokemon of mine that you would like to see me go over, or if you have specific suggestions, whatever it may be, the comment section is a great place for that. And I think that's it. So we're going to call it an episode here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all for the next episode. But until then, game on.